Imagine waking up to the news that Sony has just dropped not one, but two game-changing products. The long-rumored Sony Alpha 7V mirrorless camera, and a brand new lens, the 100mm F2.8 GM. Two names that sound innocent at first, but trust me, once you understand what they mean, your entire view of photography and videography might shift overnight. Now, before you scroll away, let me tell you this is not just another camera release. This is not just another lens. This is a statement. A turning point in how Sony wants to redefine what's possible in a mirrorless body. And if you think I'm exaggerating, stay with me, because once you hear the details, you'll realize why so many professionals are already calling this the most shocking release Sony has made in years. Here's the first hook: Sony didn't just upgrade the Alpha 7 IV. They rebuilt it from the ground up. It's lighter, faster, smarter, and loaded with features that feel almost impossible in such a small package. Think about that. A camera that looks like its predecessor but hides inside at the heart of something completely new. And what's the first thing people noticed? The sensor. This isn't just an evolution. It's a revolution. Sony has finally pushed past the limitations that even critics said would hold them back. More megapixels? Yes. Better low light? Absolutely. But the real magic is in the way this sensor handles color and dynamic range. Suddenly, shadows don't just look dark, they look alive. Highlights don't just survive, they breathe. For creators, that's a dream come true. But wait, here's another twist. The processing engine inside the Alpha 7V isn't just powerful, it's predictive. That means your camera is learning, adapting, and anticipating what you're about to shoot. Wildlife photographers, portrait shooters, filmmakers, imagine a camera that almost feels like it's thinking with you, not just for you. That's where Sony is aiming. And we haven't even touched autofocus yet. Sony already had some of the best autofocus on the planet. But with the Alpha 7V, they've introduced an AI-driven system so advanced, it doesn't just lock onto eyes. It tracks intent, movement, behavior. A bird taking flight, a dancer spinning, a child running across the frame, this camera doesn't just follow. It predicts. It knows. Let me stop right here and ask you this: how much is too much? How far can technology go before the camera starts to feel less like a tool and more like a mind of its own? That's the second hook. Because while these features sound amazing, they also raise a question: are we still in control, or are we letting the camera do the art for us? And just as that thought sinks in, Sony throws in the lens. The brand new 100mm F2.8 GM. Now, 100mm might sound like a strange choice. Not as wide as 85mm, not as long as 135mm. But here's the secret. This focal length hits the sweet spot between intimacy and compression. It creates portraits that look cinematic but feel natural. It makes details pop in ways that 85mm can't, while giving you the reach that 135mm sometimes overdoes. But the magic here is not just the focal length. It's the aperture. F2.8 sounds ordinary, until you realize the optical engineering Sony poured into this glass. Corner-to-corner sharpness, zero chromatic aberration, and bokeh so smooth it feels painted. Add the GM badge, and you know Sony isn't messing around. This lens isn't just for professionals, it's a statement piece. A way of saying, if you thought you knew Sony glass, think again. And here's the third hook: together, the Alpha 7V and this 100mm GM lens create a pairing that feels unstoppable. Like Sony didn't just release a camera and a lens. They released a vision. And the real question is, are you ready for it? Clapperboard Part 2 script, 5,000 characters. Now, let's dig deeper. Because the shocking part isn't just the specs. It's what these releases actually mean for the future. Think about the Alpha 7 series. For years, it has been Sony's backbone. The Alpha 7 III was the people's champ, the Alpha 7 IV pushed things forward, and the Alpha 7R models gave us resolution kings. But the Alpha 7V? This is where Sony starts blurring the lines. It's not just a hybrid. It's not just a middle ground. It's a flagship in disguise. And if you're a Canon or Nikon shooter, you might want to listen closely, because this camera is Sony's warning shot. Here's mini hook number 4, this isn't just about better photos. It's about changing who gets to create them. A camera this smart, this capable, lowers the barrier to entry. Suddenly, beginners can shoot like pros. Pros can shoot faster than ever. And the gap between skill and technology? It starts to shrink. But here's where things get interesting. The 100mm F2.8 GM lens wasn't released alongside this camera by accident. Sony knew exactly what they were doing. They've created a package, a body and a lens that together can redefine what creators expect. Portraits with depth you've never seen. Videos with cinematic clarity that even rivals cinema rigs. A setup that feels both futuristic and oddly dangerous. Why dangerous? Because when gear gets this good, it challenges the very definition of art. Are we still celebrating the photographer, or the machine? Are we still praising the filmmaker, or the AI that tracked, exposed, and balanced every shot automatically? That's the fifth hook. This release is not just about gear. It's about philosophy. And yet, let's not ignore the emotional side. Imagine holding this Alpha 7V in your hands. You feel the grip, the buttons, the silent confidence of a machine that knows its worth. You attach the 100mm GM lens, and suddenly, you're not just taking pictures. You're capturing moments in a way that feels larger than life. This isn't just tech, it's an experience. And Sony wants you addicted to it. Now let me hit you with something most people won't tell you. The price. Yes, it's steep. Yes, it's aimed at professionals. But here's the twist, look at what Sony did with previous models. Over time, their features trickle down. The innovations of the Alpha 7V will not stay exclusive. In 2-3 years, you'll see them in cheaper models. And when that happens, the entire market shifts. Canon, Nikon, Fuji, they all get pushed. And who wins? The everyday creator. That's hook number 6, the Alpha 7V isn't just a camera. It's a domino. But let's not forget the lens. 100mm is an oddball focal length, yes, but that's why it's genius. Sony didn't want to compete with the already crowded 85mm market. They didn't want to fight over the 135mm. They carved out their own lane. And in that lane, the 100mm F2.8 GM shines. It's the perfect companion to the Alpha 7V, a lens that feels fresh, daring, and maybe even a little rebellious. And this is where the story comes full circle. Because when you put these two together, you realize something important. This is not just Sony showing off specs. This is Sony reminding the world why they dominate mirrorless. Why they set the pace. Why every other brand is constantly playing catch-up. So here's the final hook. This release isn't just shocking news. It's a challenge. A dare. Sony is saying to every photographer, every filmmaker, step up, or get left behind. And when you hear that, you can't help but wonder. With the Sony Alpha 7V and the 100mm F2.8 GM, are we witnessing the future of cameras, or the beginning of a world where the camera becomes the artist? That's the mystery. And that's why this release is so much bigger than just specs.